So I'm Jason Clark, Head of Property Management now for UBS for the region. Up until the end of last year, I spent the last 6 years working on our new headquarters building in London, which we call 5 Broadgate. It's in the Liverpool Street area of London, and it was very in close proximity to our existing buildings. So we vacated a number of buildings at the end of that programme, end of last year, moved into our new headquarters. So I come from a kind of construction, design and now operate background. I spent a lot of years at Arabs and also with a main M&E contractor, so engineering is my background. I'm not IT, I don't know too much about IT, but I'm going to kind of share the challenge of not being someone that's within IT, trying to drive this agenda throughout, as well as amongst being the kind of technical program lead for the project. I had three real passions. Was about the soft landings, it was about the BIM strategy and the intelligent building, and they are not separate. They're very interlinked, and I find myself frequently referring to soft landings when I'm talking about intelligent buildings and vice versa. And there was no one at the time that really could tell us what an intelligent building solution looks like. So that was a challenge, is to really understand what it means to us. And that's where we engaged our users, our operators, our clients, and just understood what they really wanted from an intelligent building. So just a little bit about us. Our primary service is financial services to private and institutional corporate clients. Headquarters in Switzerland. We have a large branch network in Switzerland, and we have a large wealth management network in Asia and America. Present almost all over the world in many countries, with 65,000 employees worldwide. In the UK, we've got 7,500 people. We've got 7 sites in London and in close proximity to London with our data centres. And it equates to probably just under 1 million square feet of property. So we had an objective as late back as kind of 2008. So when the financial crisis happened, there were some very, very brave people at the top of the organisation that said we need to be thinking about moving, building a new headquarters. And it took a number of years to get off the ground, but by finally in 2009 we got it signed off, and then started to work in 2010. So a little bit about the project specifically. Again, a building that's going to last 25 plus years. We couldn't build it without providing an intelligent building solution and understanding what that would mean. Historically, we were spread across multiple buildings, multiple different systems, multiple different networks. We wanted to consolidate all of our main functions into one building, so all of our wealth management, our global asset management, all of the IB, etc., all into one central home. Previously, we had a lot of our supply chain in occupation in our buildings as well, and it's obviously expensive real estate. And we wanted to engage the building operators from the outset, to really, from inception, using the soft landings program, but our version of it, not the kind of BISRIA, but using the REBA gateways as a communication point, as a check and balance, making sure that the operators and end users were really on board, engaged, understood what we were delivering through every different design stage. We have an in-house, very small in-house team, but very, very knowledgeable, subject matter expertise in different things such as capacity management, building management, engineering. And during the life of the project, we moved towards an IFM model, and our new supplier, our partner with ISS. And so they not only managed the migration out of our existing building with us and the preparation of the new building, but also the decommissioning of our existing buildings. Overall, just to reduce costs but still maintain the level of quality that our clients expect. This is a client-facing building. The building's 700,000 square feet. It's probably one of the largest pre-let buildings in London of the time. Aligned with our existing landlord, so the lease breaks of our existing buildings expired, and when we moved into the new building, so there was a good fit there. It made natural sense. And obviously we were involved from the outset, so we had a kind of parallel path of the base build, design, build, as well as our fit-out design build, and then our readiness testing and our migration. So the overall objectives for the projects from the senior management, I won't read it all out, but it's the obvious things: flexibility, efficiency, quality, client experience. Secure infrastructure is key to us, as you can imagine. Flexibility of space and sustainability and energy at the top of our agenda, both from a corporate perspective, but also from our staff as well. So just before I turn the slide, just spend a second, I think, in one word, what an intelligent, smart building means to you. And then if you can expand that in your head, what does it mean? And we just had a session there earlier talking about the Internet of Things, intelligent buildings, smart buildings. There's a huge amount of confusion in what it really is. Generally, we always come back to technology as being the intelligent, smart Internet of Things piece of it. I was kind of faced with the same challenge. How do we define it? Because to do so, we have to define it, we have to conceptualise it, then we have to specify it. Because if it's not, as I used to say to the operational working groups on this particular subject, if it's not in the specification, you're not getting it. So you have to tell me exactly how you want it to work, and then I can deliver that. So I don't know if there's some of those come up, but certainly when I was looking around back in the early days, it was all about integration, efficiency, effectiveness, productivity. One of our senior group technology people used to call it the cyber janitor, which I found quite offensive at first, but actually it kind of fitted. And then obviously there's some more detailed interpretations of what an intelligent building is. We kind of put our own kind of thoughts around it and come up with the solution that it's unfortunately not come out quite right, but we thought it's about the whole life cycle of the building. It's not about technology, it's not about agile spacing. So it's about the plans, finding a site that was our existing site, we could get demolished, we could build on the same site, close proximity to rail stations, close proximity to client parking, purpose built for our needs, rather than trying to make a existing building fit a trading environment or a data centre. It's purpose built. Every floor is exactly thought out and delivered to our requirements. Low energy design, good construction methods, the use of kind of sustainable concrete, the facade, everything about the design is resilient, efficient, just smart things to do. And then during the construction, the fabrication of off-site, reducing the need of labour, we was able to test systems off-site so we could really make sure that it was fit for purpose before it came and it was installed. Just the recycling of materials, the demolition process. Don't forget, we was in occupation next door, so we had to make sure that the demolition didn't affect our existing users. And then we talk about the operation, and we talk about things like BIM, the building networks, the building systems, integrating them, being able to get meaningful data and functionality out of them. Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, this is a big building. It's surrounded by a metal facade. You don't get phone signals. You have to provide a 3G, 4G solution. You can't just provide one, you have to provide it from multiple vendors. So all of that had to be thought out before we embarked on the design, so that we can make sure it was embedded at the design at the right stage and we're not retrospectively trying to fit it in. And then how we're going to operate the building, handheld technology, monitoring systems, how the building flows, how people move through the building, how people operate in the building. And then ongoing change, so how we retain our O&M information but are still able to keep it live and update it in our changes through the life of the building. So for us, that's what an intelligent building's about. So we've been slimmed down a bit further. We're talking about, obviously, the development, the construction, which I'll park for now because I could spend days on that. But really, we're talking about what's a business technology and what's an operational maintenance building system. And I think if you focus on them, you understand the separation, because that puts you in good stead for the future. So as the bottom line says, I've just told you it's not about technology, but I'm just going to focus on the technology because that's the area that certainly we as a project team found most challenging. So a very busy site. It's kind of the approach, and again, with no one to really guide us, we kind of broke it down into simple said. We had to have a common network that was given. So we had to think about all the systems that were involved, all the systems that we use in day-to-day operations, and try to differentiate between what's a business system and what's a building system. What systems that are building systems, like particularly AV, interface with some of our business systems like HR, like room booking tools, which are global tools. So we got that differentiation. We then talked about the options in network solutions, and I'll come on to the different options considered. But you have to then think about, no longer are you just thinking about structure cabling in the floor, you're thinking about structure cabling in the ceiling. You're going to think about all of this additional points are going to increase the size of your hub rooms, your computer rooms. You've actually got to build your hub and equipment rooms way in advance of the rest of the floor, because you need that conveyance, you need that connectivity to be able to commission building systems. Risk, I can't highlight enough, and I've got a slide dedicated to the risk approval process. It's the biggest challenge for us as operators. Then start to document a day in the life of a user, a client. We walk through every hour of what happens in the building and how the building's intelligent and how they respond to their interaction. Building operations, how you're actually going to operate. It's all right having the Internet of Things, all these data points, all these systems. They have to sit somewhere. You have to sit somewhere and interrogate them. So you have to think where you want these repositories of the data sat. As I said, soft land was essential. If you don't specify it, it's not on the shopping list, you're not getting it. So I went out to all the operators and I said, tell me what you want from your function that would make the building intelligent for you. Then tell me whether you want it day 1, day 2 or day 3, because we can focus on the day 1s, we can facilitate for the day 2s and 3s. We can't deliver everything at once. The graphical user interfaces, every one of these systems comes with graphical user interface these days. Just think about how you use them. One of the most intelligent part of the building for me is that they all look the same. They all navigate the same. They're all icon based. I can use any one of them, and I don't use them day to day. And then you start thinking about reporting alarms. What's your processes? How do you replicate that in an intelligent building solution? I call it language and conversation. What's the protocol? What information are you sharing? Because although they supposedly speak the same language, in an IT world, it's not always the same dialect. So there's some sorts of APIs or some conversion that you need. So you have to think about what you're sharing, the protocols, and the information. There are some in the room, so I won't speak to all of them, but there are integration platforms. So there are systems that are overlaying that sit over the top of your multiple systems. They can do a lot of that interrogation for you. It doesn't detract away from the fact that you need to think about how it's going to look, feel and drive. And then you have to ask the question, do you need that? And I won't sway you one way or the other. But there are lots of security and building systems that pull all this information together. There's a level of coordination that you will not have experienced. So you have to have an IT design. There's power requirements. There's where do you want your IP points? Is it power over Ethernet? Is it powered? So there's a lot to think about. And then it's testing off-site, on-site. We had to create a lab that's probably as long as this room. We did that on site because we didn't want all of our teams traipsing off to a factory for the 6 months it took to test some of these systems. We had to provide corporate network to it, so the fact that we was next door made that easy, but that might not be an option for you. And then the last point is it's got to be documented. specified. It's got to be risk approved, designed and built into the program. So these are some of the systems that we had. You have to bear in mind that because the base build was a preset deliverable, a lot of these systems are already built. They're already on their proprietary network. We had to migrate them off of those systems onto our corporate INS network, as we used to call it. So a lot of these got upgraded in the fit out, but then they also got migrated. So you have to think about IP addressing early so that when you do that migration, you're not going around to every point readdressing and what VLANs they sit on, virtual LANs. So it included all building systems. AV systems is just one item there. There's actually 13 different systems in AV, each of them separately risk assessed, completely separate systems. So this is kind of what we're talking about. We're going from the siloed environment that's the traditional, so disparate networks, some of them on a piece of wet string, some of them on a very good network, moving towards an integrated platform. And then you have the separation of what is business systems versus building systems, because they get treated very differently. So the number of options we thought about the network, so put everything on the corporate network. That's the easiest way. But bearing in mind there's 2,000 plus IP points alone just in AV. This is a lot of extra capacity. There's also risk in that, because if an operator mistakenly connects in a patch called wrong, he can drag down the whole system. So you have to have that separation and be conscious that you're separating building systems from business systems. Also helps with the risk approval, because you can ring fence the building systems. They all can still talk to each other, but you can control that conversation through firewalls. So everything on the corporate network, network switches. The second option was to use the same network, but have a virtual separation and have completely separate network switches. So you have what we call an INS network, and you have the corporate network. That then allows you to have a virtual separation between your two systems. Much better for the risk teams, because they can see a clear separation. They can see the firewalls. They can understand where the holes are, and they can make sure they're secure. The alternative is to have a very single infrastructure that's completely standalone, but then you have less opportunity for integration between business systems and building systems. The choice is yours. It depends how risk averse you are to having that integration. It's a little bit basic, but I kind of did this on a train. It's one of my moments of good thinker, even first time in the morning or on the train on the way in. So this was how we kind of mapped up how we're going to use the spaces. We've got a fire command room, we've got a security command and control room, we've got a BMS room. What systems do we want displayed where? Is it a physical installation? Is it a virtual installation? Is it a web browser? So we just kind of sat there and thought about how we're going to operate them, how we're going to man them, where's the critical alarms going to come in, how do we prioritise? So just, again, another very simple thing to do, but every single system has got the same alarm priority as the other. So a P1 alarm on the BMS is the same as a P1 alarm on the security. The operator now doesn't need to be a building expert or a security expert. He just needs to know, if I get a P1 alarm, I have to call someone. If I get a P2 alarm, I better make sure someone knows something in 15 minutes. So that's how you kind of think about how the building operates. And that's very important, because this is where all of these connection points are all going to focus back to. Again, basic drawing, but it kind of gives you an overview of how it works. You have your data center where your servers are sat. You have your points of interrogation. You have your systems sat on a separate but virtual network. You have the firewall rules to let information pass through. So you get very good separation and security. So when I talked about the soft landings, this was a key part. Every single operator, very, very simple. For each of your functions, for each of your activities, tell me what looks like what an intelligent building looks like. Tell me whether we need to put it into the base build deliverable or the fit-out deliverable. Have we got a budget? Are we still on track? This helps, so when you go through the risk approval, you can describe exactly what the system's doing. And again, all of this functionality and integration, we effectively, this environment here is our lab. So there's a set of racks. Every single system was tested off-site individually, brought onto site, integration tested, and then deployed in the field. This is a kind of a more detailed version of the previous one, but you kind of get a feeling of all the different functions, all the different, what they saw as what would be an intelligent building. So handheld technology from predictive maintenance techniques. The enterprise and business solutions played a big part of that, because bring your own device has a dependency on the wireless and the 3G. Some of these platforms took away the dependency on the larger meeting rooms, and we heard about that earlier, where we have a lot of small 4-person meeting rooms because we all have Skype for Business. Most of our meetings are on the desktop. They're also in the staff facilities and staff areas where the one-to-ones that you would normally take up a meeting room, you take up some of the agile space. This is essential. This is the day in the life of whether it's a customer or whether it's a building operator. But it kind of describes how the intelligent building works. So you come in, we've got fantastic cycle parking. They come in from a side gate straight into the parking area. The showers are directly next to them. They can walk up to the coffee bar. They can get their coffee. All of this is monitored on the cameras. There's a low-flow shower solution, so very efficient, achieving our BREEAM and LEED accreditation. We've got electronic lockers. Those lockers are used whether you're in the shower rooms, whether you're in the gym, whether you're on the locker on the floor. It's the same fob. And I won't go through them all, but the contactless payment is on the same fob. So you pay for your lunch in the same one as you use your locker. So that will really help make sure that you're delivering for a reason. It's actually delivering a solution for a client or an operator. I talked earlier about the fundamental difference between building operators and designers and constructors and information technology guys. And this is something you have to grasp. There's a fundamental difference. Technology guys design, document, build, then they test. And the reason for that is they have to go through all of that approval. All of that documentation is required before they get to build and test. Constructors, facilities guys, we tend to design, build, test, and then we put the document together in the form of O&Ms. So you have to make sure that there's a level of documentation that then goes forward for risk approval. These risk approvals can take 6 months. The ODP process can take 6 months. So you have to make sure you're in that process, otherwise you won't get permission. In doing so, you have to think about password management. You have to tell them how you're going to manage it, how you're going to manage patch updates, how you're going to manage antivirus updates. These are things we don't do. I could go in most buildings and I guarantee the BMS is logged on. I guarantee it's the same user that's been logged on since the building was built. That doesn't work in these intelligent buildings. We have to learn new skills. We have to document exactly how we operate the systems. Internal, external web browsing. Again, it's got to go through those firewall rules. You have to start thinking about it. You have to go on standard builds. You can't just go into a BMS room and have 5 different versions of a HP desktop with a different screen. It has to be standard builds. It has to be corporate builds. The software version, it's not just a software disk in a desk. You have to have it in a locked cabinet. You have to have a way back. There has to be test, development and production servers for a lot of these systems. All of that sort of thing we don't tend to do in building management. Every network switch, I guarantee again, if I went around every MCC in your building, it would be on a proprietary network switch. They have to be managed, they have to be monitored. to be able to be then locked down and secure. And then the testing in production, so you have to test on the development servers before you are able to move it to the production servers. Again, it's an alien process to us historically. So I think I was getting the 5-minute warning. Very quick wrap up. Benefits, they're as much as you can imagine. I think for the heartache and pain and the time taken, it's put us on a platform that we're able to continually innovate. I said earlier, I was talking with my colleague Wayne there, and we were talking about the ability to be able to put the cleaners in the areas where they're most used and be able to use the lighting control system to be able to predict that footfall. And that's a very, very easy thing to do with the platform that we got because of the interconnection, because we can see visibility of every single system. The challenges are the network security risk. As soon as you push data out of the building, it needs to be secure. It needs to be through an outsourcing review process. All of them take time. And bear in mind, this is not the primary function of the corporate. They're focused on banking systems. They're focused on all the other systems apart from building systems. Just to wrap up, a few photos. So the tech point supports bring your own device. We've got agile spaces. We're not taking up meeting rooms. You've got your locker solution, just because you use the same fob. You've got your single person pods. You've got your hot desking. You've got USB charging. You've got energy efficient LED lighting. Again, breakout spaces, display screens across the floor, menus in the vending areas. The vending machines, again, work off the same fob. You've got your telepresence, virtual meeting rooms. You've got your room booking, your audio-visual spaces. It's not just about technology. Technology is a big part, but there's lots of other intelligent elements in a new building. That's me.